The morning Karen called 911 on me. I was pouring black coffee into my father's chipped navy mug, watching the mist lift off our lake like breath on a cold mirror. The cabin smelled like cedar and bacon. The porch flag Dad's old service flag hung still. A quiet, holy kind of American morning. And then I heard the SUV doors slam, 3 of them. Matching windbreakers, clipboards, HOA patrol. I set the mug down and stepped outside in my boots. Gravel crunched. The sun cut through the pines, laying gold bars across the dock. The woman at the front hair-sprayed helmet, sunglasses the size of teacups, pointed like a school principal. "You're trespassing," she said. "This structure isn't approved. You need to vacate immediately." "My grandparents built this cabin in 1952, I said. "On our own land, on our own shoreline? That's not how the HOA map reads." She lifted her phone like a badge. "I'm Karen, acting president. We've had multiple complaints, and we have rules." "Ma'am," I said. "We had this cabin when this place was a logging camp and a bait shack. The only rule back then was don't put your fish guts on the neighbor's dock." The 2 men flanking her smirked. She didn't quo and walked right up to the porch steps and tapped the post with her pen. Non-compliant railing. Unauthorized flagpole. And that she pointed past me as an illegal outbuilding. Turned. She meant the boathouse. My father and I built it one summer after my mother's surgery. We set every beam by hand. My boy's still small enough to nap inside a coil of rope while the stain dried. That detail hit me in the softest place. But I kept my voice even. "We're not inside your HOA," Karen raised her chin. "We annexed this shoreline last month by board vote. Board vote doesn't move property lines." Her lips thinned. She was not used to being told no. "Leave the premises, or I'll call the sheriff." "You do what you need to," I said. "I'll be on the porch finishing my coffee." She dialed. Loud, speaker on. "Yes, emergency. There's a trespasser refusing to leave a residential property. He's hostile. Hostile is one word. Calm as church is another." I took my mug back inside, set it on the counter, and pulled the tin deed box from the pantry. It belonged to my mother. She kept recipes and titles in it, tied together with butcher's twine and patience. The top paper was the same one I'd shown at the clerk's office last spring worn. Folded deed stamped 1934. My great-grandfather. Bought this shore with cash from a harvest that saved the mill. And 3 families besides. Karen. Kept narrating on speakerphone like she wanted the world to know. He's waving papers. I feel threatened. What I felt was tired. We'd been through this before, in 10 smaller ways. Notes on my truck. Anonymous reminders. Fines that arrived like spam. No vehicle visible on driveway between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. No utility trailers. No fishing nets hung on rails. I'd ignored them because the HOA didn't govern my land. Karen decided to make that my crime. A pair of sheriff's SUVs came up the ridge in a wash of dust and siren burps. I recognized the lead deputy. Hank and I went to high school together. He stepped out slow. Hat on. Hands away from his belt. "Morning," he said to Karen. "We got a call."
"Arrest him," she said.
"Right now." Hank looked at me. Looked at the flag. Looked at the carved sign over the porch. Parker Cabin. 1952. He took off his sunglasses and studied the shoreline the way men here learn to read land. "What's going on exactly?" Karen shoved her phone at him. "He won't leave." "He's violating, ma'am," Hank said, gentle as a man talking to a skittish colt. "Trespass means he's on property he doesn't have permission to be on." "Whose property is this?" "Ours," she snapped. "Our association's jurisdiction includes this shore." I held up the old deed. "Hank, you've seen this? Section 9, Lot 3. The meets and bounds go to the water line and out along the pier coordinates. Recorded taxes paid since Roosevelt." Hank took the paper and angled it in the light. "Sure have," he said. "And the county's GIS still shows it the same way." Karen lifted her chin higher. "Our covenants supersede casual paperwork." Hank blinked. "Casual paperwork like chain of title?" She pressed on. He's flying a non-compliant flag height. He has unpermitted structures. And he parks farm equipment. She gestured at my old green tractor within public view. That tractor pulled every kid's sled on this ridge the winter the county plow broke, Hank said. Ma'am, with respect, the HOA can't eject a man from his land. Karen's face reddened to the color of a stop sign. Then I want him cited for disorderly conduct. He refused to obey a lawful directive. Hank glanced at me. I kept my hands in my pockets. Not because I was nervous, because I learned a long time ago that the calmer you look, the louder the other person's noise sounds. We're not doing that, Hank said. But I'll take a statement. Karen bristled. You'll be hearing from our attorneys. I look forward to it, I said, maybe a shade too dry. They left in a procession of indignation and tire noise. The dust settled back on the pines. The lake exhaled and went quiet again. I stood alone on the porch with my mother's tin box under my arm and my father's mug cooling on the rail. The flag brushed the air just once. I felt something old move in my chest anger. Yes, but deeper than that. A promise I'd made to myself the day Dad folded his last fishing net and slipped from this earth. You hold the ground your people handed you, with your back straight, with your courtesy intact, with your paperwork in order. I cleaned up the breakfast plates, called my sister to tell her the highlights, and then called the county clerk to ask a question that would change everything. Because if Karen wanted to play the rulebook game, had a library. The trick with old land is this. The lines on a modern map don't tell the whole story. Counties grew like kids fast, awkward, and always outgrowing their clothes. People fenced where the trees made sense. Roads followed cow paths. And paperwork. Well, paperwork piled up like snowdrifts until nobody remembered what was under there. My mother's tin box held more than a deed. It held a survey from 1937 with hand-inked bearings, timber contract, and a letter on onion skin paper that I'd never taken seriously. It was addressed to my great-grandfather from the state's school lands office. Section 16, the one mapped for public education revenues, back in the territorial days had been leased for 100 years to Parker, Timber, and Lake. At a time when Parker, Timber, and Lake was 3 men and a mule named Betsy, most folks don't know this, but those old school sections still exist out here. Leasing them was how rural kids got roofs over their classrooms and stoves in winter. My great-grandfather had paid that lease on time through wars, drought, and better offers. When the timber business died, Parker, Timber, and Lake didn't. It became Parker Holdings, a sleepy little trust that collected a few lease checks, paid a few taxes, and sat in a drawer nobody opened. The letter said the lease included easements roads, shore access, and utility runs across, adjoining parcels that had been sold off during the boom times when the HOA's subdivision was carved out. The easements weren't glamorous. They were pipes and power lines and a buried fiber trunk. They didn't show on the color brochures, but they were the arteries that kept the new houses alive. When my dad passed, the trust papers slid to me with the flag and the shovel we used to plant every tree along the drive. I filed it all. I didn't need leverage because I was busy working and fishing and raising a boy. Then Karen discovered authority and mistook it for ownership. So I drove to the county seat in my dusty truck, parked under the maple that's been there since Eisenhower, and walked up the courthouse steps with the tin box under my arm. The clerk, Miss Jo, ran the records since before I had a driver's license. She took one look at the box and brought out her readers. Lord, that box is older than you, she said. It is, I said, but it might be heavier. We spread the papers out on the long counter like a picnic. She pulled the plat books, the GIS prints, the scanned microfiche, the whole paper trail. And sure enough, there it was, black and white as a crow on a fence post. The HOA owned covenants. They did not own me, and Parker Holdings held recorded easements across every road that led to the lakefront gates. The HOA's amenities relied on easements they never reviewed. Their bylaws said one thing. The county register said another, and the county register wins. Miss Jo tapped the onion skin letter. You know what else this says? I shook my head. If the Lesethas, Your granddaddy's outfit maintains the dam at Miller's Creek and keeps the trail open around the West Cove. They're granted riparian rights for water level controls. That's the lake, honey. The HOA can print as many rules as they like. They can't lower or raise that water without calling you. The room went a little quiet inside my ears. Not because I wanted to boss the lake, because I understood in that moment the scale of the thing I'd inherited. It wasn't just a cabin. It was stewardship of water, access, quiet. And the view that healed me every time life got loud. I thanked Miss Jo. She patted my hand like I was 6. Your mama would be proud you kept the papers. Back at the cabin, a tow truck idled on the ridge. Karen had escalated. 2 HOA volunteers were measuring my porch with a tape like they were building a gallows. Final notice, Karen said, unfurling a bright pink paper like a magician's scarf. We voted to tow all non-compliant vehicles and seize common area structures as collateral against fines. Your tractor goes. Your dock goes. Dock's not common area, I said. And my tractor's older than your minutes. She smirked. We'll see. Gentlemen. The tow driver looked at me, then at the slope, then at the lake. Men who work with weight know where decisions end. He shook his head. Ma'am, I'm not driving on that shoreline. Liability. Her sunglasses flashed. You were under contract, not for suicide, he said and left. Karen dialed again. 911. This time with new adjectives. He's obstructing. He's threatening. I stepped inside and made 2 calls. One to Hank at the sheriff's office. One to the county attorney. A woman named Ruiz, who coached my niece's softball team and wore cowboy boots under her suits. While I waited, I made coffee. I swept the porch. I straightened Dad's flag. The lake stayed calm. A blue plate with a dragonfly on the rim. Hank arrived with Ruiz. No sirens. No show. Just a public servants who grew up here and know what pine sap smells like in July. Ruiz took in the scene. Mr. Parker, she said. You brought your records? Yes, ma'am. Good. Ms. Karen said. President of a private corporate association, Ruiz finished, which does not supersede county title, state leaseholds, or recorded easements. Why are we here? Karen handed her a folder so thick it had stretch marks. Known compliance, Ruiz thumbed. She pulled out a map printed on glossy paper. This is your brochure map. Pretty, but not the law. She set it aside and accepted the old survey from me like it was a newborn. She read. She cross-checked a few numbers with Hank's phone. Then she looked up at Karen and smiled. But it wasn't warm. Ms. Karen? No. Your HOA has authority where owners voluntarily submitted their lots to your covenants. Mr. Parker's tract never did. Further, your HOA relies on easements recorded to Parker Holdings Road Utility and the little matter of the dam. You've been operating across Mr. Parker's leasehold without realizing who held it. I don't accept that, Karen said. You don't have to accept it, Ruiz said. Still pleasant. You just have to stop violating it. Karen's mouth opened, then closed. The men with the tape measures looked like boys caught with slingshots. Ruiz turned to me. Mr. Parker, the county would appreciate Parker Holdings filing a notice of interest so we can update our posted easements. We'll also be reviewing the HOA's habit of calling 911 for civil disputes. That's called misuse of emergency services. You okay filing a statement? Glad to, I said. Hank lifted his hat and scratched his head. I'll be honest, Parker. With those easements and that damn clause, you're holding half the county's water keys. I don't want to hold anything, I said. I want to fish in peace. Karen found her voice. You think you're some kind of king because you found an old paper? No, I said. I think I'm a citizen who reads. She jabbed a finger at my flag. You can't fly that at that height. Ruiz looked up at the pole, then down at her watch like she was deciding how much more foolishness to entertain before lunch. Ma'am, she said, maybe read the federal code about that before you pick your next hill to die on. The wind shifted. The flag lifted and snapped once, clean as a salute. Here's the thing I didn't say out loud. The tin box didn't make me special. It just reminded me that roots run deeper than covenants, and paper cuts both ways. The HOA thought power meant uniforms and forms. Out here, power looks like plain talk, steady hands, and a long memory. Karen left with a promise that this isn't over. It wasn't, because I wasn't going to use that box to win a shouting match. I was going to use it to fix what had rotted neighbors afraid to wave, rules used as knives. Quiet sold off in quarter-acre slices. And if that meant calling a meeting nobody wanted, with people who didn't like each other, under a roof my father hammered together, well, fine. I'd brew the coffee extra strong. We held the meeting on a Tuesday evening when the sky went sherbet over the ridge, and loons called like ghosts, tuning up. I opened the cabin windows, set out folding chairs on the grass, and put a pot of chili on low. If you want folks to hear each other, you feed them. Dad taught me that. So did church potlucks and fire hall raffles. I invited the HOA board, the neighbors who weren't part of it, Hank from the sheriff's office, Ruiz from the county, and anyone else who thought the lake belonged only to people with new siding. I stood on the porch with my hands on the rail my father sanded smooth. Karen arrived last, clicking down the drive like a metronome. She carried a binder paler than her knuckles. She didn't take chili. She didn't sit. I cleared my throat. Thanks for coming. I called this because we've been living like a town with two sets of maps. One is glossy. One is true. Folks have been fined and shamed and scared. People are forgetting how to be neighbors. Murmurs. A couple nods. Someone coughed. I'm not here to gloat, I said. I'm here to explain what the county, the state, and the old paperwork say. Then I'm going to tell you what I'm offering and what I expect. I laid it out simple. 3 points. 1. The Parker cabin was never annexed by the HOA. It sits on a tract excluded from their covenants by recorded history and common sense. I'm not under their rules. Neither is anyone else on these legacy parcels along the West Cove. 2. Parker Holdings, my family's little trust with the big, dusty file, holds easements for the roads, the utilities, and the dam that sets our water level. The county recognizes them, which means your HOA has to recognize them too. 3. None of that makes me your boss. It makes me your neighbor with responsibilities I didn't ask for, but won't duck. Ruiz stepped up and backed me with the law and words even Karen couldn't twist. Hank talked about emergency lines being for emergencies, not leverage. Folks shifted in their seats. Tension drained like water through gravel. Then I made my offer. I'm filing the notice of interest at the county, I said. We'll update the easements. Parker Holdings will formalize what we've always done, keep the dam sound. Keep the trail open, plow the ridge when the county can't. In exchange, the HOA agrees in writing to stop harassing folks outside your jurisdiction, to stop posting no trespassing signs on land you don't own, and to stop weaponizing your rulebook against people who hang nets or park tractors or fly the flag at dawn. A loon called. Somewhere a child laughed like a bell. Karen crossed her arms. And if we don't? I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. Then we'll ask a judge for an injunction. We'll ask the county to review your corporate status, and we'll ask the state to audit your use of easements across public school lands. None of us wants to pay those lawyers, especially you. A man from the back raised a hand. He wore a ball cap with the high school's cougar on it. I just want to fish, he said, and I want my dad to be able to park his boat trailer without a note on his windshield. Heads nodded around him like wheat in a breeze. Karen looked smaller than the binder she clutched. You're trying to embarrass us, no, I said. I'm trying to put the maps back together. Ruiz spoke to that. This is quiet justice, she said, not revenge. Aligning what's written with what's right. She glanced at the dam report. And if we're honest, Mr. Parker's outfit has been subsidizing your view for 80 years. Folks laughed at that. Soft and a little ashamed. We wrote it down. Signatures. Dates. The HOA secretary's pen shook, but it moved. Hank witnessed. Ruiz notarized. The last light slid off the lake and left it the color of pewter. When it was done, I ladled chili into bowls and handed Karen one. She hesitated, then took it. I pointed at the bench. Sit, eat, hear the loons. She sat. She took a bite. She didn't speak for a long time. When she did, her voice was smaller. I moved here because my husband and I wanted quiet, she said. I thought rules made quiet. Sometimes they do, I said. Sometimes people do. She looked at the flag and then at me. I was wrong to call 911. I appreciate you saying that. Does it really say you control the dam? It says someone has to care for it, I said. And I'm the one with the keys and the duty. She nodded at that word. Duty, it's out of fashion. But not here. When the chairs were folded and the last pan was scrubbed, I walked the trail to the dam with my boy. He's taller than me now, but still hooks his thumbs in his pockets like his granddad did. The moon put a silver road across the water. Do we really own the whole county? He asked, a teasing glint in his voice. I laughed. No, bud. We own a stack of old promises. Feels like the county sometimes, when folks forget what they signed. But mostly we own a shoreline and a responsibility to keep it decent. He nodded. That's better than being king, which I said. We stood there until the chill came up from the water. The cabin windows glowed warm. Somewhere upstream, a frog tried out a few notes, found one he liked, and settled into it. The next morning, the flag lifted at first light and stayed easy all day. No SUVs, no clipboards. A delivery truck stopped by with a load of rock I'd ordered to shore up the end of the drive. The driver hopped down. Heard you and the HOA made peace, he said. Not peace, I said. Understanding, he grinned. That's rarer. Maybe it is. But out here, rare things still happen. Kids bring casseroles to widowers. The volunteer fire crew beats the state trucks by 6 minutes. A sheriff's deputy knows which porch boards squeak and which dogs bluff. And sometimes, a man with a tin box and a tired. Hart uses paper to mend a neighborhood instead of tearing it. The lake was calm again. And for the first time in years, so was I. Sometimes standing up for what's right isn't loud at all. It's paperwork and patience and speaking softly while other folks run out of breath. It's knowing the difference between rules and respect. And it's remembering that a place is made by the people who love it more than they love winning. Have you ever faced an HOA like this? Tell me your story in the comments. I read every one. If you believe some fights are worth having, hit subscribe, and let's stand up together.